Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast. Today I'm joined by guest expert Tayler, and we are going to be talking all about marketing workflows and systems. But before we jump into that, do you want to take a little bit of time and introduce yourself and kind of what you do?
I am so excited to be a guest on the podcast, Jessie. And part of that reason is because I'm obsessed with the title of the podcast, The Unexpected Entrepreneur, because I'm like, hi, it me. I thought I was going to spend my life in a classroom at a community college being a professor. And like, that was what the first basically 25 years of my life was driving toward. And unexpectedly ended up starting my own business and being self-employed. So it just seems like this is a corner of the world that I'm always so excited to chat with, because we all have such interesting stories about how we landed here. And I think for a lot of people, it is that unexpected, twisty-turny journey that we all of a sudden were like, okay, this is where I am.
Well, we're here.
So we're here now, so make it work. But my name is Tayler Cusick-Hollman, and I am the founder of Enji. And prior to Enji, the start of my unexpected entrepreneurial journey was, I figured out that I am not a good corporate employee. I'm like a terrible corporate employee. And so I quit that job with nothing lined up, and eventually got connected with some small businesses here in North County, San Diego. That's where I spend most of my time. And they just needed help doing some stuff, finger quote stuff. And I was like, I can help with finger quote stuff. Not exactly sure what that is, but I had been starting to do marketing in my, properly traditionally hired version of my career. And that ended up being what the small business owners that I was getting connected with needed. And so that was really the start of, I guess I have a consulting business that now I have I need contracts and a way to get money from folks. And that was the very start of it. And I'm so glad that that's how my life ended up going, because after that, it opened Pandora's box for me. And it was like, I can start all these businesses. Let's do it. So I'm definitely a serial entrepreneur, which means I live my life on the edge. But, now the thing that takes up all of my time and then some is Enji, and being a startup founder. Again, not something I ever expected to do, but then taking a step back and looking at how my life has kind of ended up, I'm like, it makes total sense. Mm-hmm. So that's just a little bit about me and how I got here.
I love that. I feel like everyone who becomes an entrepreneur after working like in corporate, 95% of us are like, nope, I can never go back to that. Like, how did I even do that to begin with?
Exactly. My tolerance for bullshit is really high because I do not want to go back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But so we're talking about marketing, workflows, and systems. And if you came to our Click to Convert Summit, Tayler did an awesome presentation kind of talking about the strategy side of marketing and some of this stuff. And today we're actually going to talk about implementing it and what it kind of actually looks like. So when we're thinking about workflows and systems, what does that actually mean? What are they?
When it comes to marketing, the fact of the matter is, and I called people out in my presentation, and I'm so glad that people commented in they received it well kind of mode instead of like, WTF, Tayler. But the fact of the matter is most small business owners and entrepreneurs are totally flying by the seat of their pants when it comes to marketing and waking up every day and maybe marketing their businesses by accident. And that's because they don't have a strategy to guide them, to let them know what they need to do and when. And so, that's my 25-second soapbox speech about why you need to start there. But after you have a strategy, that's not enough. You have to make the plan. Then you have to do said plan.
Actually execute it.
Shocker, spoiler alert, newsflash, you actually have to do the plan. And that is exactly where I know so many people get stuck because of life, of businesses, businessing, of lifing. And it just is really hard to do that. And so when it comes to setting up a marketing system for yourself, what I really want to encourage people to think about at this point in time is when you think of the different facets of your business, right? How you work with your clients, how you take care of bookkeeping and admin and all these things. You have a system that you go to that keeps you in check, right? And it enables you to do the thing, even if you're dragging your feet overdoing it, you still can get it done because those likely pieces of software facilitate you taking action. Now I want everyone to think of, when it comes to my marketing, what do I use? And it's probably Instagram, TikTok, and what? Right? So it's like, okay, maybe they're on a social media scheduler, but that doesn't encompass all of your marketing, right? That's very focused on one marketing channel, one place that you can do your marketing. So most of all, y'all are out there not just flying by the seat of your pants, but trying to do this hard thing for your business that's super important without any sort of structure to facilitate the doing. And that's why I constantly hear, and I'm sure Jessie, you and KP hear this also, is like, I hate marketing. I'm not good at it. It stresses me the F out. Like, oh my God, can someone please just do it for me? And so that's why everyone wakes up and is just continually defeated and frustrated about this part of their marketing. So like, I am my longer soapbox, or my bigger, taller soapbox that I am currently owning as my space is, you guys, you have to get yourself set up with something to actually help you do this thing, just like you have things to help you do the other parts of, keeping your business machine moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, when we're looking at marketing, most of the time, unless you are a marketing person, let's be real, not a lot of people actually like marketing. It's part of the business that has to be done. But a lot of us just kind of grit our teeth together and get through it because we have to get through it, but don't really enjoy it. So I think figuring out ways to like have the strategy, but then figuring out ways to implement that, figuring out ways to make it easier, not trying to like reinvent the wheel, repurposing the content and having easy ways to repurpose it so that we're not spending hours and hours doing something that could take us, 5 minutes to do. Like all of those things seem like difficult things, but sitting down, like setting things up at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the quarter, or like even just setting up systems for the first time can make our lives infinitely easier and make that process so much faster.
Yeah. And you know what? We are all capable of doing hard things. Like if you started a business, that's the hardest thing. You already did the hardest part of taking an idea and building something out of nothing. And I know that, with things like accounting and bookkeeping and marketing and some of the other pieces that, just ended up as hats that you're like, cool. I didn't really realize that this was a part of what I was signing up for, but here we are. I get that not having ever done it before makes it that much more fill in the blank for everyone. And that fill in the blank is different for each and every one of us. But I want to remind everyone, you can do hard things. You already did the hard thing. So it's just another moment in time where you got to dig deep a little bit and, get over the hump. And then once you start to establish a routine, then you're like, oh shit, this isn't so bad. I can totally do this.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And it is something that like builds on it and you get that confidence and it starts to become easier and easier and you start to kind of dread it a little less and a little less every single time you do it. So if we're thinking about people who are just starting off, they're like, okay, I need to do this. I know I need to do this. I want to make it easier. Where is a good place for them to start, or what would kind of be the first thing that you would suggest having them do?
So after you've created your marketing strategy, step one, the next thing you really need to do is manage a calendar, right? Like whether it's, for some folks, it's a paper calendar. I live in this, I straddle both worlds where I use a shit ton of software. Please don't ask me to count the tabs that if you ask me to clear my cache, I'm gonna come at you because you're gonna make me log out of things. Like, please don't. So I clearly live in the software world, but also I kind of live and die by my paper calendar as well. So, however your brain works, please just do that. I don't want to force anyone into picking one or the other. You can use a mishmash of the two. But the most important thing is that you are ending up with some sort of marketing calendar. And my pro tip here is to not let that marketing calendar co-mingle with your life, because your life is probably a little bit crazy. And that's how things slip through the cracks, right? If your marketing tasks are buried in with like taking the kids to soccer and carting them around to summer camps, or just like, where in the world are you going to be and what train do you need to get on and da-da-da-da, that's how things get missed. And so I like to have a dedicated space where just your marketing tasks live, because it also just makes it seem a lot less overwhelming when you're just looking at that versus you're looking at that layered with the rest of your life, which being a human is hard. So coming up with a place that your marketing calendar is going to live is the first step. And the second step is to ask yourself a couple questions. How much time do I realistically, honestly, Scouts honor sort of thing, have to dedicate to doing marketing things every week? And I'll tell you, I've talked to so many people. And if you're like scared to say the number out loud, because you're like, it's 1 hour a week, maybe, sort of, kind of, maybe, that's fine. That is most people. That's like 30% of the people that I talk to. They tell me and they make this face. They're like, I have an hour or two a week, maybe. That's fine. So it's very important to me that everyone realizes that we're all kind of in the same boat. Like, your experience is not unique to you, ergo you are not crazy or doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So ask yourself that question. How much time do I honestly have to spend on marketing every week? Think of that number. Check. Okay. Then think of your work week. I encourage you to not include Saturday and Sunday in your work week, even though you might work. Hi. You will always find me working, but that's a personal problem but think of your Monday through Friday. Now, a great example is for folks in the wedding and events industry. I know that Thursdays and Fridays are chaos for you. So like, please don't tell me that you're going to dedicate a block of time to do your marketing on a Thursday or Friday. Like, I'm just going to say no, like, cease and desist.
It's not going to work.
That's wrong. That is the wrong answer. In every other version of the questions I ask, there is not a wrong answer, but there is for this one. So think of what's the day of the week where you can set aside that block of time and protect it. Like, really protect it. Because without that commitment, you'll never get yourself on a system, build a routine around it that eventually feels easy and turns into marketing consistency. So that's where I want people to start. Paper or digital, I don't care. How much time do you have to work on it every week? And what day of the week are you going to commit to doing the work?
And I think that's something that a lot of, kind of like a misconception around it, is that we have to have a whole bunch of time to do marketing. We have to have, stuff going out on every single channel, every single day. Like, just like anything else in business, you weren't, like, if you're a wedding photographer, you weren't starting your business and then booking, weddings every single weekend, or, 6 weddings in a month, or whatever it might be. Like, you build it up and you start to get more comfortable and confident, and then you can kind of add more things on. So taking that second, starting slow, when you sit down and dedicate an hour to something, like, you'd be surprised how much you can get done in that hour. And then as you start to grow and get more confident in it, you'll be able to do more in that hour. You'll be able to be like, okay, now I can do a little more than just post on Instagram. Like, maybe I can do 2 things in this hour and get things out on 2 platforms. And then once you're comfortable with that, you can, start to add it, or add an extra hour if you find that things are getting easier or anything like that. But I think we all think like, no, we have to go 100%. Everything has to be full force right from the start, or else it isn't going to work. Like, at this point, doing a little bit of stuff that's done really well and like is quality is going to go way further than inconsistency or just kind of like throwing something out on everything because you feel like you have to get something out on everything.
Totally. And for folks who are listening to this and not watching, I was aggressively nodding my head the entire time Jessie was talking. So I second all of those things. And the reminder that I want to add to this is there's this thing that my dad used to always say. I'm going to need to tell him that I'm talking about this on podcasts because he'll be like, that's so weird. But, you know, as a kid, one of the things, we all have sayings that our parents said to us that just have stuck forever.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that my dad used to say is, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And, you know, in reference to how much food we were putting on our plates at dinner time. And marketing is the same. You know, I know everybody feels pressure to do more of marketing. And it's not a pressure that is like me sitting down with someone and looking at them and saying, you need to do more. It's not that kind of pressure. It's just this very like omnipotent, abstract peer pressure to keep up with the Joneses. And that's what puts people in the situation where they've totally bitten off more they can chew. And they're trying to cram this big scope of work into a tiny little piece of time, and that doesn't work. So when you think about your marketing, my approach, because I'm a hardcore realist and I want people to basically put themselves in a situation where they are getting positive reinforcement because they are doing the thing over time, right? Mm-hmm. Is if you have an hour, what can you accomplish in the hour? And build your marketing strategy and routine around that. Mm-hmm. And a really good example is for folks that only are sitting there and like, I legit only have an hour a week that I can dedicate to things. Then let's just say Monday is your day, because that's when the world leaves you alone. So you've got an hour on Mondays. Let's say the first and second week, you're going to spend that hour pre-scheduling social media posts to go out, right? For 2-week chunks. Cool. So you spent 1 hour and you did your future self a favor for the next, 2 weeks, and you don't have to think about social media again for that 2-week period. Mm-hmm. Outside of being on stories. You should be active on stories. And then the second week of the month, you're going to spend that hour and you're going to write a blog, right? And for those of you who are like, there's no way I can write a blog in an hour. Hi, yes, we have AI copywriters now, and you have no excuses. So you can write a blog. So you can write a blog, or, it's something that you've decided you want to outsource, right? I know mm-hmm. that you and KP are fanatical about blogging and how important that is to your marketing strategy. I am also one of those people. So week 2, you're going to write a blog. And then week 3, you're back on I'm going to schedule 2 weeks of social media posts. And then week 4, let's say you're going to focus on Pinterest and you're going to create pins for that blog that you wrote, and maybe, some pins for your high performing social media posts that went out in the previous 3 weeks. Cool. There's a month, and you only spend an hour a week doing marketing, but you covered 3 marketing channels that are important mm-hmm. to your business. So, mic drop. Everyone can do this if they protect that time and they build a routine.
Absolutely. And it is something that I know not everyone has one either, which is totally fine. But as you grow, like if you do even get a VA, even just writing out your social media posts and then being like, okay, here, schedule these out. Like that's going to take more time. I wrote the blog post, here, schedule it or publish it, whatever it might be. So even as you grow, you can like take some of the smaller things off your plate that aren't, realistically, they're mindless tasks. It's not taking any effort or real thought to upload a post to a social media scheduler or upload a blog post, but it does take time out of your day. So like handing off those little things can give you way more time back and allow you to do additional things. So I think all of that is great. Starting small, kind of working our way up and scheduling this stuff out. Have you seen any other, besides maybe trying to bite off a little more than we can chew, any other mistakes that people make as they're starting this kind of marketing journey and trying to be more consistent and use these systems?
Oh, this one is, for some people, it's not a problem, but for others, it is a huge problem. And that's the doing your marketing across a bunch of pieces of software. Mm. And the people that it's not a problem for are the people who have more of an education, an experience, a background in marketing, and they already understand that machine that needs to be built, and they also understand how the pieces work together. So for those folks, it's not a mistake to have some things in a project management system, some things in spreadsheets, some things in a social media scheduler, some things da 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 da. Now, for anyone who's not a marketing expert or would even say like, oh yeah, marketing is something that I totally get, then doing that only makes it harder for you to understand what you're trying to do, right? Because the breakdown is in the fact that you really then struggle to understand how the pieces are working together. And marketing nowadays is becoming a more and more complicated web of things. It's a very nonlinear experience and journey on our like potential client and customer side. And so because it's not host a webinar, send a 3 email sequence, win customer journey anymore, it's host a webinar, put them in an email sequence. They're also going to start following you on social media. Maybe you need to retarget them with ads. Your landing page needs to be on lock, like, because that's more of the experience. Understanding all of those parts and how they work together, and also making sure that they are grinding in the same direction.
Yeah.
Is why being on a bunch of different pieces of software complicates your life. And the reason that people do that to themselves is a money thing, typically. They're like, I will use the free version of all the things till I die. And there's a point in time where that serves a purpose. And then there's a point in time where that becomes your problem.
Yeah.
And so if you feel like you are in the messy middle, if you feel like your marketing is very disorganized, if you feel just like so lost and confused about what the fuck you're even doing, then please tap out and say, I have a problem and I need to fix this problem. And it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you have grown and you need to do something different, right?
Yeah, it's the same idea that we always say, you know, if you're just starting off in business, use a template as your website. Like that works perfectly for you, and that's going to get you where you need to be right now. And then once you're established and you know what you're doing, or you're starting to see like, hey, I need something a little bit different, get a custom one. Like when you're first starting out, free tools are great. It can kind of help get your feet under you and help you understand what you're doing. But at a certain point, having stuff in so many different spots is just going to end up wasting time, because you're going to be going back and forth. It's more complicated. You're going to forget where things are. All these softwares are going to change. And you're like, that wasn't where that was last week. Like the more, it might be a little bit of money. Yeah, exactly.
Meta, we're looking at you. We're looking at you, Meta.
Every single time you log on, the dashboard looks different. Like at a certain point, it is, yes, it's spending money, but your time is worth money too. And the more time you're spending doing all of this, the more money you're wasting. So, you know, spending $200 a year or whatever it is for some program where you can just do everything in once, or like 80% of your marketing stuff in one spot, is going to save you so much time and so much headache. And then you're also not going to dread doing it. Because if you're like, I got to open up 7 different websites, I got to go through 6 different processes to do this, like you're going to stop doing it eventually.
Yeah. And you know, as you were talking, I think the common thread, I love your, you know, when you're just starting out, use a free website template, but then you get to a point where you need something else. You know, the common thread between both of our examples here is, once your business needs more efficiency, right? Like for a website, it would be, you need your website to more efficiently be a part of your SEO machine, to more efficiently bring people through your marketing and sales funnel, right? Like more that piece. And then on the marketing side, when you more efficiently need to get it done and focus on the things that work and get things out the door, those are the growing pains where you need to not be so afraid of like the behavioral change and the opportunity cost and that effort that needs to be exerted in order to get you from where you are and where you are objectively kind of stuck and into the next phase of your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. You kind of get stuck in that rut and you're like, okay, what can I do to like get me over this little hill, get me to the next, point where I can grow in my business. And it truly is like, there's even stuff that we've done in our own business. We're like, wow, that made a significant change. It didn't seem like it was that big of a thing, but then once you actually did it, you're like, wow, that made a huge difference. Like, this is so much easier.
Why didn't I do that forever ago?
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when we're thinking about all of this and we're thinking about the systems, when it comes to systems and strategy, how do they actually connect? How should we should we build our strategy around our systems and what we plan on doing? Should we, build our strategy and then be like, okay, what are the systems I need to actually implement this? How do those kind of connect?
I'm always going to be a strategy first kind of person, because that helps you make decisions about what fits and what doesn't. And just like I don't encourage people to try to bite off more than they can chew, your strategy is going to help you very clearly see this is worth my time, energy, money, and this is not. Mm-hmm. So start there. And then what are the tools that you need to implement those pieces of your strategy? And then that are also going to help you understand whether or not it's working. Hi, that's a huge one. Like, I don't want people to fly blind forever and just like have blind trust and faith that it's gonna work out. Like, we can use our intuition and our gut to know certain things, but when push comes to shove, you have to somehow have measure for your strategy. So I'd start with the strategy, and then what are the components that I need in order to do it? And honestly, it's pretty consistent for most people. You have your strategy. You then need to come up with the plan on your calendar to do it. And, the common marketing channels for folks are social media, blogging, SEO, referrals, and Pinterest. Those are kind of like the top ones. Mm-hmm. Advertising that's kind of in the mix, but it's definitely not in the core space that most small businesses who are trying to do digital marketing live in. Yeah. And so, okay, well, what do you need to blog? What do you need to get social media content done? What do you need to get pins out the door? And you ask yourself those questions, and that becomes your system. Whether or not you are doing things in one place or you are spreading it across a couple pieces of software, but that's how I want people to think of, what do I need to do the mechanics of my marketing?
And as we reevaluate our strategy, because obviously strategy is going to change realistically, like your strategy can change quarter to quarter. It can change, maybe once a year. End of the year is probably a good time to do like a big overhaul of, okay, out of the whole year, like what worked, what didn't work, where's the direction I want to go next year. As we're reviewing the success of our individual strategy, is that a good time to also look at our systems and be like, okay, what systems worked to either help this, or like, was there a systems issue that might have actually hurt this and that's why this strategy didn't work?
That's definitely the natural kind of break point, right? Because if you're sitting down and you're doing a bunch of evaluation, then yeah, it makes total sense to also include, taking stock of the tools that you used. But, one of the things that is just a kind of brutal reality and truth is that there's never a good time to fix your marketing other than the moment that you realize it's broken. Yeah. So, right? Like, and if you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, guess what? You're just like digging yourself into a hole, and it gets real deep real quick. So even if you feel like your hypothesis about your marketing experiment is, okay, I feel like this is working, but again, you don't feel like it is going as efficiently as it could, then that's also a good time to sit down and be like, okay, well, where am I experiencing bottlenecks or pinch points, or like there's a breaking point of failure as well. So if you start to feel friction around your marketing, that's a signal to do that evaluation. But 100% I'm on the train of, when you sit down to reevaluate your strategy at whatever cadence that is, then that's also a good time to make sure that the tools that you're using are actually facilitating the work that you need to get done.
Yeah, I think sometimes as business owners, as people, we're like, I don't really want to change anything right now. Like I have so many other things going on. I just want to let it go. But sometimes letting it go isn't the right move, because you are just going to dig yourself in a deeper hole. The issues that you had are just going to start to multiply and compound. And then you're like, well, now nothing's working at all. Like, damn, I should have just fixed this, a month ago when I saw the issue. So I definitely like that thought of, as you start to be like, okay, this isn't working, try and pivot, as long as you've like given it a chance to work. Don't be like, it's 2 days and it hasn't worked. Like, it's probably not going to work in 2 days. Let's be honest. But if you've given it time and it's still not working, being like, okay, how can I pivot and change this to see if I see any other results in the next, month or 2 months or whatever it might be. Okay. So one final question before we wrap up. Do you have any tips for people who are kind of just starting out creating these workflows and systems to kind of help them get started, or any words of encouragement when it comes to not getting stuck and kind of giving up on it?
I'm always going to come back to be kind and realistic with yourself. Please do that first, because I already know that as an entrepreneur, we all kind of like live our lives teetering on the edge. Mm-hmm. I will be the first to admit that. It has been a week for me. And I've had days where I'm like, no one should ask me for anything else right now, because I'm questioning my existential existence on this planet, right? Like that is a normal thing. We just kind of live on the edge because it's a very stressful thing to not technically know where your next dollar is coming from. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's a huge thing that I like to say publicly, because I feel like, the internet just makes it feel like if you don't have a 6-figure business, you're failing. And I'm like, fuck everyone who's saying that and making
it's not true at all.
So it's not true. It's really hard to build a 6-figure business, folks. So be kind to yourself. And, in the process of trying to get started and really get yourself organized around marketing, there's 2 camps here. There's I'm going to come in and I'm going to flip the table over and I'm going to burn it down and build it back up. And if that's your approach to life in general, I encourage you to do that, right? Like, cancel all your accounts, get set up on a more cohesive system, try something new, dive into the deep end of the shark-infested pool, if that's your jam. If that's not your jam, don't do that. And think of, identify what's the most important marketing channel for your business outside of referrals, because that's not something that requires software to do. Yeah. But, let's say it's Instagram, because a lot of folks have all of their eggs in the Instagram basket. So what is it that you need to do to fix that problem? And that's just, it's good marketing advice, but it's also just good business advice, is to identify the biggest problem that you're experiencing in your business and fix that first. Mm-hmm. Set up a new system for that first. Create a workflow around that first. Because if it's the biggest problem for your business, then it definitely should be the thing that sits tippy top on your to-do list and gets done faster.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing that's going to affect your business the most. So obviously it's the thing you should start with. But
if it's big and scary, right? Like,
yeah.
Even if it's the biggest and scariest thing, like, you have to do that.
And at the end of the day, it's not going to get any smaller until you work on it. Like, odds are it's just going to get bigger and bigger. And then you're just going to be like, well, now I can't do anything about it. Like, that's completely ruined.
Yep. And then you find yourself in this situation where you want to burn it down, but you feel like you need to burn it down, but you don't necessarily want to burn it down. And that's not a fun spot to be in as a business owner.
Yeah, definitely not. But I love what you said about being kind to yourself, because I feel like, especially as business owners, it's really easy for us to look at other people and look at them on social media and be like, why does it feel like it's so easy for them and it's so difficult for me? By now, we all know that a lot of people aren't going to show the true story on their social media. They're going to make it look effortless. And on the back end, they might feel the same way as you, and they might feel like they're drowning and they're just trying to get it out. but everybody is going to be on their own journey when it comes to their business. So you can, maybe look up to people and be like, I want to get to that point one day, but not comparing yourself, not kind of being like, why am I not doing this? Like taking things at your own pace on your own journey, and eventually you'll be able to build it up to wherever your goal is, wherever your end point is, where you're like, that's where I want to be.
I love that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This was amazing. I hope that everyone got a lot of great information off of this. If they want to stay connected with you or learn more about Enji and how that can help them with their marketing and everything like that, how can they learn more about that, keep up with you on social media, everything like that?
So, Geriatric Millennial is on Instagram. Even if you see my face on TikTok, I'm not hanging out on TikTok. So don't be fooled, folks. But you can find me on Instagram at Enji_co, and that's ENJI_CO. And, I would love if people are like, okay, Jessie and I have convinced you to maybe think about how do you do your marketing more efficiently because you feel like, it's not in the best spot right now. Then I would love for people to give Enji a try. Everyone gets a free trial. And if you need more time, a person who can get you more time. Just message us through the little chat and say, hey, Tayler, I was listening to your podcast with Jessie, and you said that you could give me a longer trial. So you can hold me accountable for that. But, I really do. The whole reason that Enji exists is to give everyone who's doing their own marketing a shot at doing it really well, because it is that marketing system that helps you understand what is it you're going to do. It helps you build a marketing routine so that you can stay consistent, and then it's going to help you track your metrics so you understand what's working so you can get better over time. And so I would love to invite everyone to give it a go. And if you have any questions while you're in there, there are real humans who care a shit ton about your success working behind the scenes. I mean, it's a small team. When I say humans, it's like there's like 4 of us. So it's very easy to find us, but we're here to walk everyone through things that they need.
If you haven't checked it out already, you should definitely check out Enji, though. There are so many different tools that you can use there that you definitely are going to have everything covered. So absolutely check that out. But thank you again for coming on with us and sharing all this stuff with us. And we will catch you in the next episode.